Hey guys, welcome back to the Calvinist Contradiction. We're here for another episode of Where is Calvinism in the opening narrative of the Bible. Again, when we're talking about Calvinism, we can plug in there Reformed faith, we can plug in there doctrines of grace, we could plug in there um, really anything that is describing the different forms of Calvinism. And so I know that people are like, Calvinism isn't in the opening narrative of the Bible because it didn't come around for like 5,000 years after that. Obviously, we're not talking about like Calvinism, the word coming in through here. We're talking about the tenets of Calvinism, because if Calvinism is the true interpretation of the Bible, we believe that it should be found in Genesis 3 and 4. Now, I know that some of you guys out there say, well, that's bad hermeneutics, setting up a theological system from the place that it is said to have originated in the systematic is somehow bad hermeneutics. You tell me that. You prove to me how that is, but that's not the case. We believe that it should be found where the theological system places its inception, and then taught clearly, plainly, emphatically, and um, consistently throughout the text. And we are able to do that by looking at the text in the ancient Near Eastern context, the proper interpretation of the Bible. It doesn't matter, if it's New or Old Testament, it's all in the ancient Near East. Okay. And so, yes, more ancient for the Old Testament, but that's the proper interpretation of the Bible. And we say that this is important because the authors have a intended audience in mind, right? It's not, oh, well, John, Calvin will read this 5,000 years later, and then he will properly interpret this. No, there is somebody immediately who they're writing to that will understand what they are saying. That's my bread and butter kind of. That's the thing that I love the most. Hey, Chris, out there, is the ancient Near Eastern context of the Bible, because it is the proper context of the Bible, not some reformer thousands of years later. So I want to give a shout out to everybody who's been talking on the comments. Cannot respond to all of them, but Chris and Mark, and even the Basil guy, or Basil, or however you say it, and he's the Calvinist guy, and there's multiple of them out there. I really appreciate all you guys, even if we disagree. Thank you. I just got the report in today. I think we have 88 new subscribers. So if you like this, share, um, hit this like button. It helps to get this message out there of God's love for the whole world, and pray about supporting my ministry. We are crowd funded. There's links to do that in the description section. Today we're jumping into Genesis 28. Again, we are asking a question: where is Calvinism, Reformed doctrine, doctrines of grace, T.U.L.I.P systematic? However you want to parse that, where is that in the text? Is it clearly, emphatically, and consistently applied to the text? And so the link is in the description section to go to chapter 28. Let's do this. So Isaac called Jacob. So we just talked about this in the last one. Isaac's being sent away. He deceitfully took the blessing from the firstborn. And I really love that chapter, because we saw there plainly and clearly that, Isaac for sure is not um, looking at the world through a Calvinistic worldview. How do we know that? Because he said, son, how did you get here so fast? Well, the Calvinists would already say, well, because God determined it before the foundation of the world. Obviously, don't you know that? Patriarch Isaac, who we get supposedly our Calvinistic interpretation of the Bible from, no, he doesn't. Jacob says, deceitfully to boot. I mean, I love it. You can't make this stuff up. Because the Lord your God caused it to happen. Did Isaac believe it? No, he didn't. He said, well, then come closer, my son. And he felt him. And then he said, well, you sound like Jacob, but you feel like Isaac. Give me some soup. Is this the kind that I like? Or, some meat. And he eats it. Does that convince him? No, come closer. I need to smell you. Do you smell like the field? Of course. He comes closer and he smells them. And so, such a strong chapter. That's why we do this. We do this live. I'm reading this with you to point these things out. And I know the Calvinists out there, why you go chapter by chapter, verse by verse? Because we can literally do it all day, every day, and prove Calvinism is a farce. Okay? No, you don't probably want to hear that, but that's why we're doing this right here. And so Isaac called Jacob and blessed him and charged him and said to him, "You shall not take a wife from the daughters of Canaan." Wait, why does he have to say this? Again, what's a command for, Calvinists out there? Hopefully you're out there and you can respond. Do it in the comment section and we will respond to you. But what's the point of a command? Hasn't God already preordained before the foundation of the world that he's not going to take a wife from the Canaanites? So why is he wasting his breath here? No, he's charging him. Hey, by your own volition, don't look at these pretty women of the Canaanites. You're not supposed to take one from them. Arise and go to Padan Aram, to the house of Bethuel, your mother's brothers, and from there take to yourself a wife, and from the daughters of Laban, your mother's brothers. May God Almighty bless you and make you fruitful and multiply you, that you may become a company of people. May He, see what's going on here, guys? May He also give you the blessing of Abraham to you and your descendants with you, that you may possess the land of your sojournings which God gave to Abraham. Then Isaac sent Jacob away, and he went to Padan Aram, to Laban, son of Bethuel, the Armene, the brother of Rebekah, the mother of Jacob, and of Esau. And so there we go. May he do this. May he do this. Calvinists, where is it before the foundation of the world? He has determined this. They could have wrote this in there. We just saw because God caused this. Um, God caused you. Is this what he's saying here? Is this what Isaac is saying here? God caused you to be blessed, and he caused you to be fruitful and multiply and become a company of people. God caused you to give you the blessing of Abraham. No, we're not supposed to interpret the text like that. Only you, Calvinist, Reformed theologian, Reformed doctrines of grace, T.U.L.I.P, systematic, whatever you want to call it, you interpret it like that, not as it's cleanly and clearly. May. He's not sure. It's not written before the foundation of the world for him in his mindset. Um, Oh, thank you so much. I just want to respond to Chris is out here. He says, I share this out to my community on YouTube. Uh, what's that say? There's a heart here. Why is this heart? Oh, thanks, brother. Thank you so much for doing that. I want to jump where you have that. Like I said, we will make that happen when you have the open mic thing. And so thank you so much. And so, Calvinists, why are you interpreting the scriptures like this when Isaac himself, well, that's the proper interpretation of scripture. All the patriarchs do this. John, John Calvin's just standing in a line of great theologians coming handed down from the patriarchs. Baloney, sausage. It's not. These guys did not think this way. You are reading that into the text, my friend. Okay, so now Esau saw that Isaac had blessed Jacob and sent him away to Padan Aram to take to himself a wife from there, and that when he blessed him, he charged him, saying, "You shall not take a wife from the daughters of Canaan," and that Jacob had obeyed his father and his mother and gone to Padan Aram. Now, why is that important in a Calvinistic worldview? What is that information proof? Do anything? Why? Because, uh, Esau here is before the foundation of the world, hated, despised by God, hates his guts, wants him to die. He's a worm. He's going to crush him. He doesn't love him. He's not going to send his savior for him. It's only limited atonement. He hasn't conditionally elected him again in the Calvinistic worldview. He's not a part of Israel who's saved for nothing, for apparently because they're elected, because election equals salvation in the Calvinistic conflation. And so, what's the point of all this? Well, the actual point of this is it's giving you information that he sees this happen, and what's he going to do? Go and do the opposite. That's literally why it's written here, not to be taken as, you know, just words that are written down that are supposed to not be uh, taken into account here. These are something that is going to make the volition of the will, cause him to do something different, right? He's looking at this, he's seeing this. I'm going to go do the exact opposite. And how do we know that? Because so Esau saw that the daughters of Canaan displeased his father Isaac. So all that information was to prove that he recognized something. Okay. So this is the chain of events that go down in the scriptures, not ordained before the foundation of the world, and God hates his guts because he gets glory from that. No, that's not it. He sees all this, he recognizes that Isaac doesn't like what he's the Canaan daughters, who are probably beautiful, uh, but he doesn't want them. And then what does he do? He makes a decision and he goes to Ishmael and marries besides the wives that he had. Mahalatath and the daughter of Ishmael, Abraham's son, the sister of Neoboth. And remember when we saw back there and we made a note of this? This is how true theology goes. That, where was this at? Yeah, when Esau was 45 years old and he married this daughter, and they brought grief to Isaac and Rebekah. And so that was what the information before. And we're like, okay, well, what is this? Um, Remember we said when we see these people moving into the east, it's not going to go good for us, go good for anybody here. Why? And that's because when they move to the east, there's sin associated with that. Not, you're born in your mother's wombs, your guts are hated before the foundation of the world for nothing that you did, as Calvinists claim to be. Again, where's the age of accountability? Accountability, the bar mitzvah and the bar mitzvah, which Jewish adherents still carry today. They still do this. A bar mitzvah, you're taking responsibility for your allegiance to God now. That's what's going on. What about Jesus saying, do not hinder these kids from coming to me? Because the kingdom of heaven is theirs, Mr. Calvinist, Mrs. Calvinist, who say they're hated before the foundation of the world. You abort them for God's glory. They don't know the Lord, they go to hell. This is Calvinistic theology. And you can't complain, oh man, because it's for God's glory to boot. Chopping up babies in the mother's womb when they can't protect themselves is for God's glory, because he's a monster in the Calvinistic systematic. But wait, you're supposed to swallow that pill, you're supposed to shut your mouth, and you're supposed to cry for 3 days and let it embrace you like a warm blanket. Because, as unimaginable as it might seem to us today, from the killings of Dennis Rader, who ate people, to Auschwitz and Birkenau, where they literally gassed millions of people and burnt them, to and under other unimaginable things, uh, to the rape of small children. It's not God allowing these things, it's doing them. And guess who wrote that? Somebody attributing to John Piper's website, the most famous Calvinist in the world today, John Piper. That's on his website. And so, you know, that's how we're supposed to render this? No. Moving into the east by their own volition of the will, they're moving away from God, and they're telling us that this is going to be problematic. And so I'm pretty sure it was Ishmael. I'm trying to find it. I can't remember where it was. Um, but it says somewhere that we made a note of it. I just can't see it. It was in chapters past that they move into the east. And I'm pretty sure it's Ishmael and them. That was like one of the last things we hear about Ishmael, is that they moved to the east, and we made a note. This is not going to go good for people in the future, because east is associated with sin in the Calvinistic, in the true theology, not like Calvinism, where it's just, you're hated in your mother's womb before God, before times past, because God needs glory out of it. It's not how it goes. So, all that to say, do not read this into the text. Then Jacob departed from Beersheba and went towards Hanan. And he came to a certain place and spent the night there, because the sun had set. And he took one of the stones of the place that he had put under his head to lay down in that place. And he had a dream, and behold, a ladder went up from the was set up on the earth, and its tops reaching to heaven. And behold, the angels of God were ascending and descending on it. And behold, the Lord stood. So he's seeing visible Yahweh. So it's the same person that Abraham saw, that Isaac saw. Now Jacob is seeing it, the visible Yahweh, which is Jesus in the Old Testament, the God of your father Abraham. Oh, and stood above it and said, I am the Lord, the God of your father Abraham, and the God of Isaac. The land on which you lie, I will give it to you and to your descendants. Your descendants will also be like the dust of the earth, and I will spread out to the west and to the east, and to the north and to the south, and in you and in your descendants shall all the families of the earth be blessed. Okay, now we've talked about this multiple times. This is what he says to Abraham. This is what he said to Isaac. Now he's saying it to Jacob. So, how is this possible that all the families on the earth will be blessed unless it's talking about Jesus coming, who came for all men, not limited atonement? We can prove that right here. Prove to us where limited atonement is clearly and emphatically stated here, and that's how we're supposed to render these texts. Every family on the earth, because again, Paul in Romans 5, before 8 and 9 says that through one man, all sin comes, and through one man, all people will be justified. That's what it's talking about here. That's what they're being elected for. This is nothing to do with salvation. No salvific thing is going on right now. I know you guys uh, conflate election with salvation. That's not going on here. There is no salvific thing going on. He is being elected to be the seed that carries forth the promise of the Messiah. How do we know that? Because he is in he's in the list of what's that called? Lineage of Jesus. He comes from him. Behold, I am with you, and I will keep you wherever you go, and will bring you back to this land, for I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you. Oh, so we're supposed to interpret that from the foundation of the world. What I have promised before the foundation of the world, I have elected you to do this because that's what Calvin says 5,000 years later, and then we read it back in the text. No, he just made a promise, and he's going to keep that promise because God is faithful. Then Jacob awoke from his sleep and said, surely the Lord is in this place, and I did not know. What? He's been elected before the foundation of the world, and he doesn't know. He was meticulously controlled to know, but somehow that slips. He doesn't know. So God now makes him, meticulously controls him to know. No, he doesn't know. He does not know that the Lord was in this place. It literally says that. And so we're supposed to take this probably. I'm just speaking for you, Calvinists. I'm literally asking you, how are we supposed to render this in your own systematic where he says, okay, that, I'm going to do this. I'm going to keep my promise here. And Jacob says, I didn't know anything about this. I didn't know he was here. Well, let's see what else it says here. He was afraid and said, how awesome is this place? This is none other than the house of God, and this is the gate of heaven. So Jacob rose early that morning, took the stone which he had put under his head, and set it up as a pillar, and poured oil on its top. He called the name of that place Bethel. However, previously the name of that city had been Uz. Then Jacob made a vow, saying, if God will be with me and will keep me on this journey, and I will take and I will give and will give me food to eat and garments to wear, and I return to my father's house safely, then the Lord will be my God. Well, wait, I thought the Lord was his God before the foundation of the world. Obviously, this is his calling, right? I'm trying to read it consistently. Like, I have the text in an ancient Near Eastern context for you guys, proving theology that is biblically based in its own context. So let me try to do that here with Calvinism. You guys said Abraham's called out of his house. That means he was elected for salvation before he leaves in Mesopotamia in Ur. And then he was already saved when it says that it was accounted to him as righteousness. So that was just, you know, empty information, right? That's how you guys you literally told me this in the comments. So let's apply that to here. So he's been saved because he leaves his father's house. He's told to leave his father's house. And so he leaves his father's house. He's not told by the Lord, but, he leaves from his father's house. He's meticulously controlled and determined before the foundation of the world to see the visible Yahweh here when he lays down, right? So he's saved. You can't come to God unless you are saved in the Reformed systematic. You are literally unable to do that. That is what total inability means, is you are unable to do that. And so God comes to him. So he's saved, right? He's saved. This is where I'm building my case right here. So let me go. He's saved, and then he says, "I'll give you the promise," because that's interpreted in the Calvinistic systematic to happen before the foundation of the world. You can't change this unconditionally. And then he wakes up and he says, "I didn't know the Lord was in this place, but okay, that's awesome. This place is awesome." It literally says that. And then Jacob says, "I'm saved because before the foundation of the world, this is how it's all supposed to go." Just like Abraham, my grandfather, just like my father, Isaac. No, that's not what he says. This is what he says: if God will be with me and will keep me on this journey, and that take and that I take and will give me food to eat and garments to wear and return me to my father's house in safety, then the Lord will be my God. Okay? And so right there, this is where I said technically in the Calvinistic systematic there could be people saved who aren't professing Christ, right? Or confessing an allegiance to God. Because what does an allegiance have to do with anything in the Calvinist systematic? You are unconditionally elected. That means you do not have to pledge your allegiance. You don't. You do not have to. Oh, you're crazy. You're saying this. You're a, you know, how dare you say anything like this? This is the comments that I got. Who would ever teach it? Well, I'm teaching you right now from your bunk systematic that is why we don't interpret the scriptures that way, because you applying what you have said in the comments, Calvinists, about Abraham, and the same thing shows up here, and we apply your systematic fit for the dung heap, I would say, but your systematic to the text, and now you have Isaac elected before the foundation of the world for salvation, because election is salvific in your conflation of that word. Election equals salvation in the Calvinistic conflation, and then that's how all the families are going to be blessed, right? Because he's elected unto salvation in your systematic. And then he says, "I'm not pledging my allegiance to God until later." So you have literally in your own systematic, if we would follow it consistently, which you can't, because that's the point of the Calvinist contradiction, which we set up this channel to prove. And you guys do a pretty good job of that, Calvinists, to be fair. It's really good advertisement for me. But you would have a man here who has been elected unconditionally into salvation and is not pledging his allegiance to the Lord as of yet. Point made, mic drop. That's why the systematic is bogus, because the gospel never changes. Okay, the gospel was not you're elected unto salvation before the foundation of the world, unconditionally, irresistibly, and then never able to know if you were saved, because God has to persevere you literally to the gates of heaven. So out of this realm and into the next. And there's no possible way that you could come unto the Lord. That's the T.U.L.I.P systematic, Reformed doctrine, doctrines of grace, Calvinism proper, however you want to parse that, has nothing to do with pledging allegiance. But the true gospel is from Abraham, even before, is that if you place your allegiance into God, you will be counted as righteous. That's what happened with Abraham. If you place your allegiance onto Jesus, you will be saved. Okay? There's not going to be anybody like this from the Calvinistic systematic where they are interpreted. This is not what biblically it says. This is what the Calvinist interprets. He's been elected unto salvation, and he's not pledging his allegiance to God, at least as of yet. It doesn't matter. A pledging of allegiance has nothing to do with salvation in a Calvinistic Reformed systematic. Why? Because it's unconditional. Okay? Let's just beat this into your head until you understand your own systematic. That's a lot of you guys, I'm not being mean, but have taken on this systematic because you don't understand it. That's sad to me. Okay. And then the Lord will be my God. not I'm pledging my allegiance right now, and he is my God. Okay, so this stone which I have set up as a pillar will be God's house. And of all that you gave me, I will surely give a tenth to you. So there it is. That is my case of why this system is baloney sausage. You cannot tentatively, consistently apply this to the text. You can't apply it to your life. You can't apply it to the gospel. You can't apply it to anything when you literally sit there, think about it rationally. Yeah, you can sign on the dotted line and get a good amount of money because Calvinism has the most money in Protestantism right now. You can plant a flashy church, you can get promoted, you can do all this stuff if you adhere to these doctrinal truths. Literally, this happened to me. So I'm not making this up, I'm not maligning it. I live in the Middle East, and planting a church here, my friend, he's still my friend, I love him, wanted to join a big Calvinistic organization, and everybody that was with him had to sign on the dotted line. And if you signed on the dotted line, you would literally be funded beyond belief. It's the most beautiful church in our whole region, if not our whole country. It has the most money, more money times 10, times maybe 100 than any of the other churches. And all we would have to do is sign on the dotted line. And it's like, I cannot sign this. You know that I believe this is bologna sausage. We've talked about this a ton. I've talked to you about this. I don't believe this is a biblical interpretation. And we had to break ways. But you literally can do this. You type into Google anything that I'm saying today, and John Piper's Desiring God, huge bologna sausage, and I would say dismiss them outright just because of the things I've proved on this channel. But go ahead, they're going to pop up, and everything on the first page is going to be basically a Calvinistic interpretation of anything theologically. And that's just how it goes because they have the most money to be able to do that. But I'm telling you right now, that's not the way that you're supposed to interpret it. That's not how the Bible or the opening chapters of this Bible put forth. And so I want to get into responding to some of these comments over here. So we have Andrew. Hey, brother, thank you so much. So, what exactly are the elect saved from on Calvinism? Before they were born, they were set apart for salvation. This is the exact point, my friend. Great point. What are they saved from? Well, I guess they're saved from God's monstrosity. That's really what it comes down. They're saved from God because God is the only one who holds power in the systematic to send them to hell, and He does it for His own joy and glory. He does literally. He gets glory out of that. He delights in that. May we? Because before the foundation of the world, He chose who He wants, and then He has despised everybody else. So it's only saving him from God. I mean, who becomes the devil. In the Calvinism slot, the devil's innocent. He's only doing what God makes him to do. He's the puppet. Wait, Calvinists don't like that word. He's the robot. Oh, not allowed to say that in Calvinism. He's the clay. Okay, we're cool with that. So he's just clay in the potter's hand who's making him. So the real monster, the real devil is God. And in the systematic, Andrew, they're being saved from God's own monstrosity, his own evil. God is evil in the Calvinistic systematic. Nobody ever bucks at that. He is the creator of evil. He is the one who does evil. He's the one who eats people. He's the one who kills people. He's the one who rapes people. But you're supposed to accept it because it's for his own glory. My experience, Andrew says, a lot of the Calvinists don't even understand the logic, let alone their own systematic. My friend, we had a guy on here last week who said Calvinism and determinism are different. Now, I love that guy. I'm not, being harsh on him. I'm just saying he understands zero of his own systematic, or at least the workings of his own systematic. And he's probably a part of a lovely church that is a Calvinistic closet Calvinist who teaches, the doctrines of grace. So it sounds good, and lives contradictory to what their own systematic puts forth, because that's the only way they can do this. They cannot live consistently within the own system. You cannot. It's untenable. That's another one. I can't remember what that popped up about, but that's exactly right. Awesome. That's what we're saying here. It's just God. This is what we always talk about. Hold on, let me see what you said here, and then I'll say I spoke with the guy just yesterday who affirmed and acknowledged causes. If you're going to affirm something like that, no, how is a conversation even possible? It's not. I mean, the job here on the Calvinist contradiction is pretty easy because it's just really one thing saying, "Who are you, O man, to buck at the predetermined, ordained, and decreed way that I think?" And then the Calvinist just has nothing to say because what are you going to say? What can you say? Again, uh, let me see. Okay, another one popped up, John. If you guys were serious, I joined the conversation. Seriously, have fun, folks. Okay, well, we love you, brother. I said that the other day. We love you. We wish you would join the conversation because we are serious. We're serious about you seeing the truth of the gospel. We're serious, John. Right now, we'd love to hear from you, how any of those questions that I asked previously in this recording work. Because if Isaac is, elected unto salvation before the foundation of the world, and then he says, "I'm not placing my allegiance into God yet," how's that going to work? In time and space, in the text, what's going on there? It just makes no sense because you have to remove an allegiance, a pledging of an allegiance from your systematic. Because why? Unconditionally and irresistibly, limitedly, all these things. So, what does a pledging of the allegiance have to do with anything? Nothing. Absolutely. And so we do talk about this a lot. What was I going to say here to Andrew? Is that it's the only thing that ever is being saved in the Calvinistic systematic is from God. Because why? God is so powerful, he can beat himself in chess. And we're supposed to praise him for that. You know, he is so awesome at everything, he can beat himself. Can I beat myself in chess? Yes. Should I be praised for that? Absolutely not. Can I be the best chess player on the planet or the best supercomputer? No. So should I be praised because I can't beat him? No. And the same applies to God. If God can beat himself, he's not praiseworthy. If God can beat anything everywhere in time and space, yes, he is praiseworthy. That's the exact definition of why he's praiseworthy, because he can do that. And he does do that. Now that he can do that, but he doesn't do that in the Calvinistic systematic because for his own glory, he has to control everything. It's not the truth. Andrew says it's not up to him when he's going to place his allegiance in the first place. That's up to God. Yeah, in the Calvinist systematic. That's up to him. Again, what does the appearing of the theophany? So we've talked about this a lot. The appearing of the visible, uh, the image of the invisible God. That is what the theophany is. So he's standing at the top of the ladder, or he comes walking to him in a dream, like with Abraham, or he takes him up into the stars, like that happened with Abraham, or Isaac sees him. What's the point of a visible theophany in the text if they're already going to, before the foundation of the world, understand and accept? Well, we know that the theophany that happened in Genesis 12, so when he's being called out of Ur, has a part to play in him placing his allegiance in 15, where he says he trusted in the Lord, it was counted to him as righteousness. That is the um, the order, the order salutis, right? I get this a lot. I had this guy, I think his name is Bodhi or something like that, on the comments, who said, "Look at the order of Salutis, the order Salutis, or whatever it is, the order of salvation." And he goes back and he makes up a bunch of Calvinist crap that's never in the text. Of course, you can see Calvinism clear when you make stuff up that's not in the text. He said, "Look at how he's saved in Genesis 12." It never says anything like that. And so I made the point back then. If Abraham's saved in Genesis 12 and he never placed his allegiance into him, you literally have somebody saved in heaven, which is how the systematic plays out when you sit there and you play it out to the end. You could literally have people in heaven who never pledged their allegiance. And there's not going to be anybody in heaven who hasn't pledged their allegiance, who hasn't put on the proper clothing. They're going to be chucked down in the outer darkness. And that's not me saying that, that's Jesus. So this is going on long enough. Love you guys. Andrew, thank you so much. John, I don't know if you're still out there, but love you, brother. Chris, and all you other guys who regularly are on this channel and speaking in the comments. I literally love you guys. Love all you guys. And God bless you. Share this stuff. Pray about supporting our channel, supporting our ministry over here. There's a lot of stuff going on. We just baptized a couple people on Sunday. It was awesome. And so, like I said, I'm in Asia Minor. I wrote a book. It's about to come out in our host language, and got some books coming out for you guys about these topics. The big one that I've been talking about is how Islam and Calvinism share a lot in their own systematics. And so be on the lookout for those things. Love you guys, and I will talk to you later. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week for another episode of the Calvinist Contradiction. Oh, hold on. Something popped up. I didn't want to cut you off, Chris. Chris says, real quick, the line between our will and God's will is so blurred in Calvinism. Yeah, definitely. Well, it's just one will, really. Why would someone not just think we are all God? Absolutely. I never saw much difference between it and some new age philosophy of us in Bain, God. And Chris, Andrew says that's an excellent point, Chris. I do too. Pantheism is just all around corner. And let me just say one more thing, one more plug for another future book that I'm kind of working on here, or it will probably be in the Calvinism book, Calvinism and Islam. Is that what? How does this book stand out from every other book? Because we say that this one, right, this above every other book was inspired by God. That's why we hold it on a different level. But in Calvinism, every book is inspired by God. Muhammad was inspired by God to write the Quran, even though that's not really how it goes down. But this book is just another book of all the other books, which are all inspired by God under Calvinism. So it's just bologna sausage. It literally is mind blowing that people don't think about that. That this book is unique. Why? Because it comes from God. Not in Calvinism that it's unique in no way, because all books come from God. And so thank you for your points. Again, I'm going to hop off here now. So love you guys.